Welcome to Legal Keys, unlocking time, revenue, and results. The podcast that connects you with the people, technologies, and trending topics shaping the modern legal landscape. From cutting-edge AI innovations to high-growth marketing strategies and everything in between. Legal Keys is your go-to resource for actionable insights. Brought to you by Faster Outcomes and hosted by Tim Sawyer, two-time Inc. 500 co-founder entrepreneur. We're here to help you navigate the tools and trends driving success in today's legal world.
Hello, welcome to Legal Keys. It's great to be here today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If this is your first time, welcome, and we hope you have a great experience. If you've joined us before, thank you for returning. We appreciate your support, and we ask that you continue to like and share the podcast as we grow our audience. We're starting to build a strong following, and for that, I am super grateful. Believe it or not, this is our 5th episode, and we continue to find the most interesting and knowledgeable legal technical professionals in the United States and beyond. And today will be no different, and I cannot wait to introduce my next guest. We are joined by Mathew Kerbis, better known as the Subscription Attorney. After nearly a decade in traditional private practice, he launched Subscription Attorney LLC to serve the often overlooked middle market through affordable, tech-powered subscription legal services. He's a James Keane Award winner, a top 40 ABA on the rise lawyer, and host of the popular Law Subscribe podcast, which I hope to be a guest on someday. And with all that said, Matt, do you like Matthew or Matt?
Either or. Most people call me Kerbis, so it's up to you.
All right, Kerbis, let's do it.
Let's
Welcome
do
to
it.
the program, and can't wait to hang out. Tell us just a quick little bit about yourself that you want everyone to know beyond your bio that we can all read.
Yeah. I'll just say my name is Mathew with 1T Kerbis. If you go to MathewKerbis.com, you'll see all my talks and where I talk in depth about my background. Tim, I want to get into the meat and potatoes today, so let's skip the background. Let's talk subscriptions. Let's talk legal services. Let's talk the future of law.
Let's start with the one thing that all my friends would be have an interesting reaction to, and that is the idea that we need to crush, smash, destroy, or at least modify the traditional billable hour model. And that's really a lot of what you do, right? Is trying to work through that, around that, improve that. When did you start thinking like that? And as a lawyer, talking to other lawyers, what's the reaction that you typically get?
Yeah, so I recently looked into it, and I think I got the domain to subscriptionattorney.com back in 2018.
Okay.
And so that's at least how long I've been thinking about this. And probably even a little bit before then. But I was billing by the hour and absolutely hating my life. And my clients didn't like it. I didn't like it because even though I was at an insurance defense firm and I was doing that, I had my own book of business.
Okay.
And I didn't try to have a book of business. I didn't learn how to develop a book of business. I just happen to be a somewhat affable guy. I do good work. People know, like, and trust me. And so I was building a book of business. And those clients hated that at this new firm I had to bill by the hour. But I was at that firm for 5 years, and I was always trying to think about other ways to do things. Stumbled upon the subscription model, started reading everything I could and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos all about the subscription economy.
Yep.
And just thinking, how could I apply this to law? And at the time, there was like a 2017 article in the ABA Journal that they interviewed like 5 or 6 lawyers about how they had ditched the billable hour and they were using subscription or fixed fee. And so I read that article, reached out to those folks, started talking to them. So I thought, hey, if I have these questions, other people have to have these questions. So actually the idea for the podcast came first. I decided to record those conversations. And then after doing that for several months, I just could not, I couldn't just keep talking about it. I needed to do it. And so I left a firm to start my own firm from scratch, virtual first, subscription first, no tracking time. And it was easy.
Yep. And so let me ask you this, because we have the good fortune of working with all types of lawyers, right? And some of the best law firms that we have, fastest growing law firms we have are subscription based. They're in healthcare, and they work with small practices who like to pay a little bit up front and then, more on the commercial side, not the personal. And they're doing great. But again, as I talk to clients who are immersed in this, it's pretty entrenched. right? So this is where it always gets interesting for me, is how you as a lawyer, and then this podcast is all about helping other lawyers just take baby steps with some good takeaways, right? So if someone's feeling like you, and many are, although may not admit that, at least on a podcast, how do you get in the right mindset to even take the try to do that, right? To make
So I teach a lot of CLEs and I do some one-on-one consulting, which I'm trying to figure out how to do one-to-many. I mean, primarily I'm practicing law, right? Like I'm leveraging AI, technology, automations to deliver legal services to the middle market clients, right? I've gone down market, frankly. I go all the way down market, except for that access to that like true like legal aid. Like that's what legal aid organizations are for, right? So I don't go that low to it, but the easiest thing to do, and what I suggest is you pretend, and this is going to happen. So like right now, like I'm on record saying pretend this, but this is going to happen. Your bar association, your state Supreme Court, whatever licensing body, controls your license, bans the billable hour. But they give you, and depending on how I'm feeling that day, I'll say they're going to give all the lawyers 6 months, or a year before it's banned. What do you do? And so that, at least engaging in that thought exercise, gives the lawyers or the law firm, the impetus to start planning. Okay, the billable hour is going to be banned. It's not even going to be an option in a year from now. What do we do? Well, then you could really plan it out, right? And what I recommend as far as the communications to clients are concerned, even before that, I think inevitable scenario ultimately happens, I think you say to your clients, hey, look, we're switching over to the subscription model a year from now, right? If you switch over, within a month, you get this rate. Right? If you switch over within 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right? Like you let them know what the rate's going to be that they could lock in for.
Smart.
Right? For that time. Right. So that gets the clients on board because now they're financially incentivized to switch over to that model sooner. Right. And when you stop tracking time, when you stop billing time, you're actually incentivized to figure out, maybe if I am still doing some passive time tracking, because now all this tech, it does all this passive time tracking. Gosh, like working on that project that for that client, that took like 3 hours. Instead of it, okay, we're going to bill for it, whatever. We were like, okay, well, we've already been paid. Or the money's either sitting in our IOLTA or it's already in our operating account. We've already been paid. How do we make that take 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes? Can we just automate it? Right. So just there's this mindset shift where you're no longer billing by the hour and you get paid in advance. You just want to do the work and get it done.
Right.
And so that becomes part of it too. And as far as how to get buy-in from the rest of the firm, the easiest way, and this is a hard way, but it's the easiest way, is to burn the boats, right? I had to leave a practice to start my own practice.
How did you do that? You must have had to migrate, right?
Yeah. And
did
frankly,
you ever talk to the powers that be in your firm and go, hey, I'm thinking maybe we should look at this, and they go, no way.
No. To be fair, like my firm was very open-minded to it, and we developed a litigation-based subscription model while I was there. And I think, just under basic IP rights, they have ownership rights over, that model, right? Because like I built it while I was there on the firm dime, and we were trying to launch it, but they still wanted me to track hours, bill hours. I was just like, it's too hard to build a practice within a practice. And so I left and I pivoted to full transactional, and I completely ditched litigation and the billable hour. And then this is where I ended up. And like that's part of it. Some of it, like my most successful, like the lawyers who come on my podcast who have ditched the billable hour, they're using subscription. The most successful ones started their own practice.
Right. And so, which brings us, I want to go back to something you said, which was it's easy, right? If you begin with the end in mind, you operate that this is inevitable, that quickly, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say, right? So people would start planning for that quicker. But outside of that, how could you move? So when I'm talking to people, so you said, hey, once you know what the process is and it's on a subscription, just shrink the time, right? Become more effective and efficient, and you'll make more profit. That concept seems to escape the vast majority of folks that I talk to, right? And particularly, and we're going to pivot to AI in a second, or tech and AI. And you have that conversation. It's like, well, Tim, if you're telling me this is going to reduce my billable hours, I'm not sure how that helps me, right? So they literally can't get past the concept that, well, there may be another way. So if you think about, let's talk about AI for a second, right? And the wonderful things that you can do inside a law firm with artificial intelligence, whether it's a workflow with agentic frameworks, anything that a human can do, basically at this point, you get the idea that we could do it with AI. So I'm a lawyer. I'm Mr. or Mrs. practice manager, founding partner, lawyer, entrenched in billable hours. And I'm talking to you. What arguments would you use to persuade me to consider switching the model and integrating tech? And what would that tech look like?
Yeah, and I will also caveat this answer with the fact that actually lawyers have been very receptive when they discover the podcast, when I'm talking to them, when I'm at a CLE, when I'm negotiating a deal, and the other lawyer is like, subscription attorney, like, what is that? Like, recurring revenue? Like, that sounds nice. Like, I've never heard a lawyer say, I don't want to make more money and for it to be easier. Right now, imagine that you're also providing value, to your clients at the same time. Right. It's not just about making money. That's just a happy happenstance of, the subscription model. Right. Because now you're incentivized to continue to deliver value. And what sometimes the most valuable thing for a client is fast turnaround. Right. Like, getting results faster is actually more valuable. And there's an attorney from across the pond who I've had on my program. His name is Sean Hardeen. Yep. And even in the fixed fee world, which is where he primarily lives, he likes to give, and what he helps attorneys do is he helps attorneys do some pricing like this. Like, somebody comes to you with a legal project, estate plan, M&A deal, whatever, right? Yep. Litigation. And you price it, okay, it's price A, B, or C, right? Level 1, 2, or 3. And at level 1, you're going to get it in 2 months. And level 2, you get it in a month. And level 3, we can get it to you tomorrow. And you have to price accordingly, right? And at least anecdotally, when he's helping lawyers, he said that you'd be surprised on how many clients actually pick, I want it tomorrow, and they're willing to pay 10x the rate. But it's a fixed rate. It's a known rate. They could budget for it. And if there's value, and the value is not in how long does it take, time has been a poor proxy for value. But when things used to take a long time, yeah, sure, but they just don't take a long time anymore on the topic of AI and automations, right? So now, like, what is the value? Well, if you get to deal close 6 months faster because you're incentivized to flip red lines the same day that you get them back from opposing counsel or from the other attorney that took them 2 to 4 weeks to get turnaround red lines, then that's 6 months of more revenue for your client than it used to take if you were to take 2 to 4 weeks every single time you're flipping red lines, right? So like, the value becomes obvious, super obvious. So you just have to recategorize the value as to what it is rather than how long something takes. Because almost always getting something faster is more valuable for clients. And the technology really lends itself to that. I mean, anyone who's just played around with AI knows how much faster you can get words on a page or analysis from words on a page. It's just, it's significantly faster.
And I think, to your point, what's ultimately going to drive that, you probably have better insight than I do in terms of the legislative appetite, whether it's just encouragement from individual association, bar associations, or whatever, or actually someone legislating, hey, you're going to have to do this. But what's interesting, what you just said is really cool, that the consumer could actually be the one to drive this, right? So to your point, I want to make sure we underscore this point. If you said to someone, you can have good, quick, cheap, whatever, pick one. And the person goes, no, I want it today and well, and I'm willing to pay whatever. Well, that's the consumer saying, I prefer that, right? And the larger law firms, what I'm hearing is that's where the most pressure is coming from their consumer, because their consumers are corporations too, right? And they're saying, where it used to be, hey, I hope you're not using AI, to, hey, I hope you're using AI, man. Like, I'm not paying 30 grand for this document. I want to pay 10. And I know, and and now it's kind of like, I know, I know, and that's kind of unfolding, right? Are you sensing that? Are your larger corporate clients saying, yeah, we're feeling it from the consumer?
Well, and look, like, I'm serving, small business owners as small as 1 employee to as large as 300 employees, right? But like, and my larger clients, they are still using your big giant Am 100 law firms for really important transactions and other things. But I'm their day-to-day, fractional GC, right? They don't want a full-time in-house attorney. That's why I slotted in real nice. And I'm also fractional GC for people in their personal lives, right? Help them with a simple estate plan, help them with, they're buying or selling a house, help them with an employment situation, just as long as I'm not also representing that employer, And so, I normally think about it in terms of that market. When I'm out there and when I'm talking to lawyers about it, I'll say, with the AI efficiencies right now, here's what's going to happen. If you're still billing by the hour and you draft a contract or you analyze a contract and you write an opinion letter and, you're billing 3 hours for something like that, $500 an hour, whatever, $1,500 now that you're billing to your client. And your client takes the same contract, letter, what have you, or research, question and types it into ChatGPT or whatever their favorite AI tool is. Right. And they get an answer in a few seconds, maybe a minute if they ask some follow-up questions. Now we, the lawyer, can look at their output and our legal, stuff that we've actually worked on. We put a lawyer mind to, and we know that our work product is correct and better than some random, hallucinated, made up, not quite accurate document, but it's going to look like the same to a layperson. Right.
Right.
And so now they're going to start saying, well, why did you bill me 3 hours for this when I got the same thing from AI? Even though we know it's not accurate, right? It's going to be a serious question we're going to have to handle. Now, if you go up market, in the institutional client, larger law firm space, it's even worse. And here's why. They have an in-house legal team, and their output from AI is actually accurate. Hey, our in-house team did this in an hour. Why did it take you 10? Right. So it's actually the problem is compounded for the larger firms in the institutional clients when you have your in-house teams leveraging AI, and we see massive investment in AI for in-house teams, and in-house teams are expanding. Right. And so it's only going to get worse for the large law firms. And it's even worse for the large law firms because when more big law lawyers, probably associates, maybe some junior partners, learn about what I'm doing, they're going to say, wait a minute, I can make a healthy 6-figure income. Right. Running my own virtual law firm, actually helping people rather than just helping super rich and big corporations move money around. I'm out. Right. Which is a challenge already because the population is aging. The law, I don't know if it has the same allure as it once was. But many industries don't, right? Whether it's insurance, the law, or financial services, or whatever. It's an aging population because they're not super sexy, unless you make it sexy, right? And I'm meeting some really cool people who are making the, like the song says, they're bringing sexy back to legal, and it's great to hear. The other thing is, what you mentioned is an interesting concept too, because when lay people now start fooling around with open source forms, right? And in their mind, they think, I could do this. It seems like the challenge would be, if I was you, that Tim Sawyer's sitting at home and does what he thinks is the perfect document. I go, I'm just going to go ask Kerbis to give me 5 minutes just to look at it. And it's way longer than a 5-minute project, but in the consumer's brain, this thing's done. Do you experience that much with your clients, and how do you talk them through that? And because that would drive me freaking nuts. Yeah, I've started to experience that a little bit more, and it's okay because look, I'm not billing by the hour at the end of the day, right? And my clients stay subscribed to me, and I'm thinking lifetime value. I'm not thinking how do I maximize profit in this one legal project, or because I think of them in terms of projects rather than matters, because I'm looking at long-term relationships. So I try to maximize lifetime value. I want this client to stay subscribed. Right. So I explain to them, I say, well, that's a great operating agreement summary that Copilot drafted for you. How about I use Paxton, my $200 a month legal AI that actually has proprietary legal large language model and uses all the other models. Like even if we were to draft something from scratch with that, it's going to be significantly better. This is why you're paying me. This is why you're subscribed to me, right? Let me, if we really want to generate something from scratch to see what it looks like, that's fine. But just so you know, I also pay for a document database and automation platform. In fact, I pay for several, and we already have manager-managed operating agreements in there. So let's just put in your information into the workflow and pump it out, and then let's use AI to enhance that. And that's going to be a heck of a lot better, and it's still not going to take a lot of time, but just AI coaching in general, when I even do stuff for my local chamber of commerce, I explain how AI being used to solve the blank page problem is actually not a great use of AI. It could be okay for idea generation, but almost always you're going to have significantly better work product if you take something human generated and enhance it with AI. Yeah, and in particular, if you have a database of knowledge, right, or a knowledge base, then you could leverage that. And I'm leveraging Notebook LM Plus right now more than anything else for that. You can like generate all kinds of great things based off your knowledge base. Like you build your own retrieval augmented generation system.
100%.
Yeah. And so that is like, that's where you're going to shine. And so you subscribing to me, client, let me leverage all of that I've already set up. And we could just do this over one of our 15-minute calls. And it's not going to take more than 15 minutes to get something high quality.
I feel like what you just said is probably going to be the biggest challenge, is coaching other lawyers through that talk track, paralegals through that talk track. Because I feel like they're going to, if you think about when the internet became a thing, right? And going back to car dealerships prior to the internet, could beat up on customers pretty good, right? They knew everything. They had all the, the customer had to just figure it out. And then the internet came out, and I'll never forget, I'm partners with someone who started the first digital marketing company for car dealerships. And the big challenge they had was the consumer, for the first time in human history, knew more than the salesperson, or worse, believed they knew more than the salesperson. And that's when, and so the guy would show up on the lot, or the gal, and say, okay, I went on kellybluebook.com. This is what I'm willing to pay for my car. This is what I'm willing to pay for your car. This is what I want, right? And then the untrained salesperson goes, well, is Kelley Blue Book going to buy your car, idiot? And so they, in a sense, instead of embraced that consumer, they disgraced them and pushed them away, right? And so that group developed a training group called Serve Thy Customer. And they had to educate the entire auto, and they got paid a lot of money, educate the entire auto industry on this new brand of consumer. And it sounds like you could probably make a career just out of that.
I know, but I like practicing law, and frankly, I lose my credibility the moment I stop practicing law, doing what I'm doing, right? And so I have no desire to pivot into like full-time, like coaching lawyers how to do this thing, but I do. And when I have time, I do it, and I charge for it, but I charge, fixed rates. Like I'm not billing by the hour to do it. Right. And yeah. And like WebMD is another great example, Tim. That made me think of, now I know everything that's wrong with me, and I go to my doctor, but here's the thing. Here's what
everyone's self-diagnosed. Right? Everyone's sick.
But here's the thing. They still go to their doctor, right? Ultimately, they still have to go to the dealer to buy a car. And so what does this do? It eliminates unknown unknowns. So if I'm the layperson and I don't even know my problem is a legal problem, but ChatGPT said, hey, I can't give you legal advice, when it gave me, some sort of answer or something. Oh, is this a legal problem? Maybe I need to talk to a lawyer. And then they ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever search, AI-powered search answer engine that they're using. And who's going to come up, in that same box? They're not going to go to Google. They're just going to keep talking to their AI, GPT wrapper, whether that's an OpenAI wrapper or a third-party wrapper like a Poe or whatever, right? Yeah. So then you want to be there in its answer.
Yeah.
So this is a legal problem. You should go talk to a lawyer. But if they try to go talk to a lawyer and the lawyer's like, oh, I charge X amount an hour. Well, how much is this going to cost? I don't know. We're going to see how long it takes.
Yeah.
You think that consumer is going to want to continue? I'm just going to keep chatting with the AI. Thank you very much for $20 a month. Right. Whatever. Right.
Right. Crazy. But you're exactly right. It's like WebMD. And who knows what hallucination they're getting that's leading them down some weird path that says, oh, obviously I have cancer. Right. And really they have a cold at the end of the day, or vice versa. And so I think what you're doing is super cool. I think the transition is happening. There's no way around it. And it's just a matter of in what form it comes in. And I think with most things, value is typically the ultimate longest term driver. You could legislate, you got to do this, you got to do that, but people go kicking and screaming, everyone's got a lobbyist to fight. I think at the end of the day, it's folks like you leading the way and saying, hey, there's a different way to do this. And instead of me poo-pooing AI in all its forms, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to use it to add value for the consumer, add value for myself, help my friends make more money, have more fun, and including yourself. And I think that's awesome, man. And so the one thing you said, hey, here's what I want. My friends who are in the same place I am, they're frustrated that this sucks. They don't like it anymore. Go back to step 1, step 2, step 3 to make that pivot.
Well, it helps that I have a podcast and a heck of a lot of content around this, because if you go to lawsubscribe.com, I have a series going right now called How to Run a Law Firm in 2025. And so if you go to lawsubscribe.com and like the the menu of like things you could click on, it's right up there next to home, podcast, directory, and then how to run a law firm.
Okay.
And right there, that's going to be 18 episodes, and we're about halfway through publishing those right now.
Okay.
They're all produced. It's just we're releasing them on a weekly cadence, and like that's kind of like a step by step. Okay, it's easier than ever to launch a law practice and run one in 2025. Here's how you think about entities. Here's how you think about finances. Here's how you think about marketing. Here's how you think about technology, hardware, software, learning, balancing life and parenthood, with all of that.
Yep.
So yeah, I've just answered that by just making not evergreen, but like long living content about it, Tim. But for your podcast listeners, I will say the most important thing is time doesn't equal money. Less time equals more money and more value for your clients.
Amen. I think literally that's the best way to put it. We really appreciate it. So anywhere that folks, you speaking anytime soon, where can folks catch up with you over the next 3 to 4 months? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I mentioned www.lawsubscribe.com for the podcast, also wherever podcasts are available, including YouTube. MathewKerbis.com is the speaker portfolio where this will live, along with all the other talks that I've given that are somehow recorded or other. LinkedIn is really the best place to get in touch with me. So Mathew Kerbis, or the subscription attorney on LinkedIn. And then the firm, for the lawyer listeners that want to see what I'm doing, I'm very consumer and client-centric. I have full transparency on my website, subscriptionattorney.com, including my engagement agreement, all my pricing. Everything is transparent for clients, but for a lawyer who's interested, then you could also go there and check out what I'm doing, because it's just out there for the world to see.
Let's go. What a great topic. I think this is the future, man. And it dovetails perfectly with, and I think it's going to trend, because people don't buy cars the way they used to. People are still trying to figure out how to do medical. That's not the way they used to. We got some work to do there. And I think the law is going to go the same way. And like I said, it's folks like you that are driving that charge. And it's better for consumers. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and some mental shift that are going to happen. But I really appreciate you taking the time. Again, I want to thank our listeners for joining us today. The podcast, as always, brought to you by Faster Outcomes, the ultimate legal intelligence platform, native AI based for law firms and lawyers of all shapes and sizes. We encourage you to continue to listen. Appreciate you taking the time, Kerbis. My instincts tell me we will see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.